Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco, Dish Out on the Movies. Today we're doing a review of a movie that I picked out. Marco will never let me forget it or let you forget it as well. It's a black and white movie. It was made in 1942, which was a mistake because movies at that time, a lot of them were like propaganda movies, which that's what this is. Oh, propaganda meaning anti-Nazi, because it was the middle of World War II. This is a Sherlock Holmes movie, so it's in black and white, and it has Basil Rathbone as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Bruce as Dr. Watson. Okay, and it is called The Voice of Terror, which refers to a person who broadcasts to people all over Britain that they are bad, they're losing, they'll never win, they might as well give it up. It's kind of like, and I know anybody's watched any modern World War II movies with Japan, they always hear about Tokyo Rose, which was a similar radio voice. It was a woman who spoke perfect English, and she would say, you know, you GIs are stupid and give it up, you're never going to win, we're going to beat you, you know, all stuff like that. Well, this was not...
Did she ever give out recipes?
I don't know. She was on all the time.
Here, you can have my teriyaki. You can have my teriyaki special. And I promise it will not poison you, but it actually will. Is that what she would do? Because like that could have been.
I said she would do.
That would have been
you're never gonna win. You give it up.
That would have been a smart strategy, though. Like, you know, give out recipes that would like really make people grossed out, because it would be like, you know, I don't know. But that would have been a good thing too. Like if she gave out recipes. Because I'd like to eat a Tokyo Rose recipe. Like, it would be the bomb.
Could be. She didn't even know how to cook. I don't know anything about her.
What did she know how to do?
I don't know. I'd have to look her up. Well, she knew how to speak perfect English. And she was very famous. Everybody knew. I mean, everybody knows, if you've watched any war movies, Tokyo Rose. But I didn't know if they had anything similar like this in England or anywhere else in Europe. I've never heard about anything, so I'm gonna look this up after we do the review. So it was called the similar type thing of The Voice of Terror, and they referred to themselves as The Voice of Terror. So what the story is about, you want to go ahead, Marco? Marco does not like the movie at all.
No.
It is, I wouldn't have picked it out if I'd just paid more attention to the year it came out. And Marco said at this time that they made several of these. They'd make at least 3 of these movies, these Sherlock Holmes movies, because they only last like an hour. They made like 3 in a year, which is a lot, which means there wouldn't be much to them, and it basically almost like fluff.
Yeah.
And if you've heard any of the radio broadcast or read any of the books, or even seen some of the modern versions of the movie, there's a lot more to the story. There's always a lot more to the story, and there's a lot more deductive reasoning. In other words, he'll come upon a clue and he'll work it out and say all kinds of things about the clue and what it means. And usually there's a lot of that in the story. And because this was only an hour and it was a propaganda movie, there was only a few of these instances where and I'll tell about one after Marco says some things, unless he wants to say what it is. There's only a couple of, maybe 2 or 3 instances where he might say a few, like have a clue, and he'll say it's this way because of that, but he doesn't say much in terms of that, not like usual. So go ahead, Marco.
Well, this movie It's probably one of the worst movies I've seen all year. It was so bad, I was bored to tears, literally, by the end of the movie. I wanted it to end, and it was just like torture. It was so bad. And, it's like movies that are like this, like propaganda films from this time period, they're just as bad as propaganda movies from nowadays. Like the ones nowadays, they're a little bit worse because they're made by people who don't know how to make movies, but at least like the propaganda films from the 40s, they were made by people who were competent filmmakers. Like the movie is well made in terms of it has that noir look.
Oh yeah.
And
sure does.
And so it looks like it should be a good movie, but the movie itself is just terrible. And it's just all about being propaganda for Britain, which is ironic because the people who made this movie are all American. So it's just very bizarre. Like this, it's like the typical American type of movie where you know that if the people who made this movie were alive nowadays, they would be making movies that are pro-Israel and pro-Ukraine. That's the type of shit they'd be making nowadays. So, that's how bad this movie is, though. Like, it's really, really bad. There's really nothing good about it except for Sherlock and Dr. Watson. Like, this was my first Basil Rathbone Sherlock Holmes movie. And based on this, I would not want to watch any of the others. Because no matter how good they are in the roles, I don't know how good the films are going to be. Because, like, if this movie was this bad, that to me guarantees that there should be another one that is just as bad as this, if not worse. Like, there's 14 of them, so that's a lot of chances for them to make another bad movie. This is only the third one in the series, too. And I would say, though, that it does make you realize that these really are the perfect actors for these characters. Dr. Watson, since this movie series, I really feel like his character has been destroyed. Like, he's not a fat guy anymore. He's like a handsome, skinny guy, and he's not the character at all.
And you couldn't. I don't think you could have him against against Sherlock, because Sherlock is flawed. The real character is flawed in and of himself, because for one thing, I think he's addicted to opium, and then the other thing, he plays the violin, and so why is he addicted to opium? I don't know. But I mean, he's kind of a flawed character, but he's really smart. And he's really good at coming up But so, I mean, I don't know how you could have a perfect... Dr. Watson is kind of a even more flawed character.
But they've ruined his character. You see, like, nowadays, you see Jude Law as Dr. Watson. Why are they casting Jude Law as Dr. Watson? What a terrible casting choice.
They don't have anything in common at all.
I really resent those movies now that I've seen this one, because if I had known that, like, these characters from this movie that we're reviewing, they're the versions of the characters that should be in every single movie and show, not the people that they've had nowadays with, like, Robert Downey Jr., Benedict Cumberbatch. He's not the character at all. That other guy in Sherlock, he's not the character either. And so it's like they've really destroyed these characters. And it's really shitty, because it feels like, even though maybe a lot of these older movies aren't as good, the actors are perfect for the roles.
They really are.
So it's sad that this movie was so bad, because it should have been great. There was no reason for this movie to be bad. Safi, she tried to give an excuse that, like, well, the British were being bombed all day long. And it's like,
every day.
Safi, that is not an excuse to make a bad movie. Like, I don't care if you're being bombed, if you're being raped, if you're being killed. That's not You still need to make a good movie.
Well, plus the fact that people making the movie were Americans. They
Yeah.
were being bombed.
They weren't being bombed at all. They were eating Hershey's chocolate bars and having a good time.
Probably smoking cigarettes.
And you said, too, what did you say about this movie about encouragement? Because I want to talk about that again, because that was a bunch of bullshit, too. Because there's
I don't see. This is the thing where I'm not sure this was actually happening. Whereas, they had this Tokyo Rose character who was constantly on the air saying all this crappy things about American soldiers, and so if you listen to that, you might get your morale would be down. It was a morale killer, and so if England. They're trying to stay alive and
Safi,
soldier
if
on.
I heard some random Japanese bitch on the radio saying, You are a bad soldier, you suck.
They didn't speak like that.
I wouldn't care.
She spoke perfect English.
Really?
She didn't have an accent. No.
She didn't have an accent either? Well, who cares? Like, that would be like if somebody made a video on YouTube saying Safi and Marco dish out on movies sucks. Like, who cares? Like, why would I fucking care?
Well,
like
that's what Sherlock Holmes said.
I'm the one with the gun. I'm the one with the gun. Like, I could go and shoot Tokyo Rose if I wanted to. Like, that's what the soldiers should have done.
That's what the story is about.
Yeah.
They want to know who is this voice of terror, and where's it coming from, and want to get rid of it because they were afraid, because it was played for all these British people, regular British, not just soldiers, that it was going to kill their morale, and they didn't want any morale. They didn't need that, and so they thought that getting rid of the voice would help with the morale. And Sherlock Holmes even said in the movie, he said, "We don't care about that voice. Do you think the British people are that weak?" He didn't say it like that, but that they can't handle that, and they're not going to soldier on because they're like good patriots, or they care about their country.
That's what you call a propaganda line, right there.
Well, I don't know what he said exactly, but he said they don't care about that voice.
And I wouldn't have cared either. And so, like, this movie, Safi said that it was an encouragement movie, and she said that because there's multiple times in the movie.
I don't know why. I mean, to be shown Americans, I don't know why.
As you guys just heard, there's multiple times in the movie where they stop the story so that they can tell you, "Go Britain! Britain forever! Long live Britain! Yeah, Britain! Yeah!" And like that happens so much in the movie that you're like, why even tell a story? Like, why don't you just make a commercial with Sherlock and Dr. Watson where they're holding British flags instead of American flags, and they're saying, "Go Britain!" Like, that's what they just should have done, because that's all this movie was in the first place. So, like, why didn't they just do that? Because that would have at least been more honest than, like, trying to force feed you this propaganda story about the stupid voice that, who cares? Like, I wouldn't have been encouraged by this movie. Like,
yeah, that's why I say I don't know the purpose of the movie, because especially since it was made by Americans, it did have Nigel Bruce in it, who is British, but I don't think that the other guy's British at all. I think he's an American.
He's got kind of a British sounding name, though. Basil Rathbone. I mean, that sounds like a British, like, school teacher or something. Like, that's
he's American, though.
He doesn't seem British, and he, as I said, they were both really good. They were the only good thing about the movie, but even they were not enough to make the movie good itself. This movie was just, it was so torturous to watch this movie. Even though it was only an hour long, it felt like it was like 10 hours long. And I really hate movies that are like that, because even if you had like the worst movie in the world, like Barbie or something like that, which that's another pure propaganda film, at least that movie isn't boring. You know, because when you watch that, you're really pissed off, and you're not going to be bored at all because you're thinking about how bad it is. But I really hate movies like this that are just boring and bland and dull. And I immediately knew the movie was going to be bad when I saw the comments on the movie. Because there were all these old people, and they were all saying, "Oh, gee, golly, isn't it great back when movies didn't have profanity and nudity and violence? They just had a good story." And it's like, but wait a second, movies all had that type of stuff back then. Like that whole thing about like movies and that era not having that stuff, that's a lie. That's a bold-faced lie. Like, they had a lot of that stuff, and then they had the Hays Code, and that censored everything and ruined everything. So they actually had all that stuff back when, you know, like, these types of movies were made. So that's just complete bullshit, you know, that whole thing of, like, you know, oh, back in the day, you had movies like this. They didn't have any nudity or profanity, and it's like... What do you think of that, Safi?
I can't stand that.
Yeah.
That's so queer.
Yeah.
Because it's just not real. It's fake. The good old days, really? Is it really the good old days?
No.
No.
Like, they had lots of violence in the real world, too, and it's like, it's so funny because it's like, a lot of these types of people, you know, like the ones who want to cancel Harry Potter, they're more concerned about like violence and nudity on screen than in real life.
Yeah,
like they
would care about guns and too many of them.
They're more worried about like, oh no, that movie has nudity in it. But then they don't care about like people getting murdered and raped in real life at all.
Yeah.
Which is just pretty hilarious because it just shows that like, you know, movies like this are really what's wrong with the world because like this movie. If I wanted to torture someone at Guantanamo, I would show them this movie.
Nah.
I would show them this movie over and over and over again, and they would give me all the information about the voice of terror within like a day. What do you think of that?
Okay, well, maybe we better get into the crux of the movie.
Well, we should also mention that all the side characters suck too. And you know,
They're very bland and nondescript.
Yeah, and I feel like a good mystery movie, or just a good movie like this in general, like a detective movie, or just a show. Let's think about Psych. In Psych, all the side characters are really, really good. The girl detective, the guy detective, the head of the police chief. All the other side characters are really good too, and it's not just the main two characters who are interesting. And in this movie, you have no one. You have nothing. You have Evelyn Ankers.
Well, that's probably it, Miss Kitty.
You know, from the Wolfman. She was Mrs. Wolfman, and she's not good in this movie. Like, she's really bland and boring. Safi and I, you know, we didn't even know if her character was good or bad because, you know,
in terms of the bad guy or the good guy.
Yeah, like, we couldn't even tell. That's how bad it was, this movie.
Well, I thought, she did appear to be a double agent.
Yeah.
And,
I thought she was a triple agent, though. Like.
Well, no, she turned around and she really had been working for Sherlock, so I don't know what they call that, but
a triple agent.
They do have that in real life, where an agent will pretend to be a double agent, but really work for the good side.
Yeah.
They turn around and work for the good side.
And
That's a real thing.
I was really disappointed in that, you know, because she's a good actress. And then you said that Moriarty's in it, and, you know, he should be a good actor, too, obviously. So, like, why did he suck, too? Everyone sucked.
Yeah, the guy who plays Lloyd, they have this council, and this council is the one who hires Sherlock to investigate about this voice of terror. And so one of the council members is the actor who plays Moriarty in the later movies. And he really is a good Moriarty character. So I was thinking that maybe this was like Moriarty's first movie, or first placement of Moriarty as a character, and he was like, had a different name because he was on this council, like he was impersonating a council member, and he really wasn't. He was Moriarty, and that he was going to give Sherlock Holmes a problem. Well, it turns out he is really Lloyd, but he is a problem for Sherlock Holmes. He doesn't like him. He doesn't believe in him. He tries to stop him at every chance or get in the way of his investigation. So he is a problem for him, but not like Moriarty, where they actually want to kill each other. So anyway, they're on this investigation. This is one of the only times that he does this deductive game or reasoning that he does. And what happens, Sherlock Holmes is at his apartment or house or whatever it's called, flat, and Dr. Watson's there, and they hear a knocking at the door, and they go, and Sherlock is suspicious. He tells Dr. Watson to be quiet, and then there comes a knock. They go to the door, they open it, this guy walks in, then he falls to the ground. He has a big fat knife stuck in his back, and he says, "Gavin," and the guy says, "Sherlock Holmes," and then he said something about, I keep forgetting.
Well, and you know what I was saying?
Christopher.
He
says the word Christopher, and they think of a person named Christopher.
I was saying, who the fuck is Gavin? Like, this random guy named Gavin just walks in. Like, who the fuck is Gavin?
We don't find out about who Gavin is right away. He finally says, "Well, I had Gavin go do some extra investigating for me, and because he could go into a place maybe he couldn't go. Who knows?" He doesn't say anything like that. He just says, "I hired this Gavin guy to do some extra work for me." And so at the end he just says Christopher. And so we're thinking, and I'm sure anybody else watching the movie would think Christopher is the name of a person.
I was thinking Christopher Columbus.
Well,
happy Christopher Columbus Day.
How about Christopher Lee?
Oh. Well, he also played Sherlock, and I will say I also saw The Hound of Baskervilles with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, but I can't remember it because I thought it was boring as a kid. I didn't have the attention span.
That was in color too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I didn't have the attention span to like that movie as a kid. So
anyway, he's got a knife in his back, and so Sherlock pulls the knife out. He says, the person who did this threw it from 50 feet away, and they were 5 foot 10 inches tall. And Dr. Watson says, "Well, my dear boy, how'd you come up with that?" And he says, "Well, the angle of the knife and the depth of how the knife went, how deep it went, is what made me think of what made me come up to those two conclusions." So that's like one of the only times in the movie where he does his little deductive bit.
And I feel like that's another bad thing because, like, that's what his character is known for.
Yeah.
Deductive reasoning.
Yes.
And he does that, like, 2 times in the whole movie. He hardly does any investigating. He never pulls out the magnifying glass so that he can, like, look around everywhere, like, with his magnifying glass. So, like...
Well, and the other thing, after that happened, they immediately left the apartment.
Yeah.
And so, but on the way out, Sherlock grabs his, that typical hat he wears, has a real big bill, and has a real close part to his head, and has a little button at the top, and then he has the signature magnifying glass, etc. So he doesn't have a magnifying glass, like Marco said, and Dr. Watson says, "You promised not to wear that," and so he puts it down, and he puts on a regular, like, fedora.
Yeah, and
I didn't understand that at all.
That was weird too.
I didn't understand. I don't remember anything that was said.
That seems like something maybe in, like, the movie before this. They had some joke at the end where Sherlock said that he wouldn't wear that, but, like, that's just stupid.
I don't know. That was really weird because he wears it in other.
Yeah.
episodes. So I don't know.
I don't get that.
I don't get that either, and I don't recall, and if I don't recall, Marco doesn't recall anything that was said before then that led to that, him saying that.
So this is like the Last Jedi of the Sherlock Holmes movies, where Sherlock isn't going to wear his hat. He's not going to use his magnifying glass.
I don't believe it.
That's what this movie's like. Last Jedi. And that's not good. So what else should we really talk about? I guess you can kind of go through like the stupid mystery, because the mystery, I couldn't care less. Like by the end of this movie, I was fighting to stay alert and finish the movie because it was so bad, and it was just horrible torture.
Well, anyway, I guess one of the things that you had to do in this movie is you're constantly trying to figure out who the double agent is. And I thought right away there was somebody on the council that was a bad guy. And of course I was thinking about the guy who's playing Moriarty. Yes, he is troublesome, but he was not the one they were looking for. And what he was supposed to do is find out who this voice was. He was playing this, and he figures out, this is another one of his deductive, and I did not really understand how he came up with it.
Me neither.
He listened to Beethoven's Fifth. He called in the radio station. He asked them to play Beethoven's Fifth. And then he was looking at these radio signals, like it showed the waves on the screen of this device. I don't know what that would be called. And then he listened to Beethoven's Fifth, and then he plotted this graph. And he figured out that the radio, the thing that was playing, the voice they were hearing of this voice of terror, that was not a live radio broadcast. That was made on a record. And that the record had to be done there in England. It was not done from Germany. So that means that, and then he figured out something else, which I still didn't get that, maybe you did. With every time he did this broadcast, this plane would come and it would fly out of England with secret British documents and pictures of war preparations or battle preparations. Every single time the broadcast played, the plane would come. I don't know where he came up with that.
I don't either. That's what I say. This movie's trash. I feel like the best way to salvage this movie, and I would like to see this, is I would like somebody to edit the movie, and I would like, instead of the voice of terror, I would like for the voice on the radio to be Alex Jones. And I would like it to be all about Sherlock Holmes hunting down Alex Jones, because I think that would be really funny. So that's about all I can think of with this movie, is because it doesn't make sense either. I just kind of gave up on it near the end, and I was like, this is one of those movies that, once again, if I wasn't having to review it, I would have turned it off. Because
I wish I would have picked a different movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't pay attention to the year, and if I'd known what the year was, because I even think they made a Shirley Temple movie.
Shirley
that was
Temple.
Propaganda.
Really? How could they
yeah.
do that? She gets kidnapped by Nazis and then they find her? How would they do that?
No.
Shirley
I don't remember.
Temple.
I think I saw something, and I saw all of those movies. They used to play that. That was another one of those, besides Tarzan. They would play Shirley Temple movies on Sunday morning, like a Shirley Temple movie. And I think I saw all of those. And all of the Ma and Paul Kettle
Tarzan
movies, and Tarzan.
Tarzan and the Third Reich.
those three series of movies. I'd watch those on Sunday morning.
Did they ever do that one? Did they ever have Tarzan versus the Third Reich?
No. I don't
that would be really funny.
Tarzan like that.
I want to see that. I want to see Tarzan versus the Third Reich.
ends up she's working with a guy called Mr. Mead, and I think Mr. Mead is the one making the recording.
Mr. Mead.
That's what she calls him. This is Miss Kitty.
Yeah.
So Miss Kitty, what this thing, and the thing about the propaganda, what happens is Sherlock and Dr. Watson go to this Hampstead bar, and it's not a bar, it's a what do they call it? A pub.
Yeah.
And he's looking for Miss Kitty. Tells her she wants to know where Gavin is. She tells him he tells her Gavin's dead, stabbed by the Nazis, and they've got to do something. It's them against the Nazis. And so she gets up in front of the bar and she says, I need to know who Christopher is. We've got to do this against the Nazis. And what's the problem?
There is a Tarzan Nazi movie, 1943. As World War II rages on, a group of Nazi paratroopers land on the hidden city of Palandria to exploit its wealth, and they start taking hostages. Can Tarzan, the powerful king of the jungle, and his trusted companions Cheetah and Bully save them?
Oh my God.
A Tarzan Nazi propaganda film too?
Oh wow.
Ew. Why would they do this type of thing? Like, who would think that would be a good thing? Like,
it's funny.
If I was a soldier fighting the Nazis, I would be like, I'm not really encouraged anymore. I want some real encouragement. I want some Hershey's chocolate bars. I want all sorts of shit. I don't want a stupid Tarzan movie and a stupid Sherlock Holmes movie.
That is funny. I don't remember watching any. I must have never seen it because I don't remember.
Tarzan triumphs. They spoil it. They spoil the movie right in the title too. Like, wow, great job with that.
Well, of course he would triumph.
Why?
Because it's Tarzan.
But what if he didn't triumph?
Don't you understand?
Well, well, maybe he could not triumph and then he'd get replaced by a woman. You know, that's what would happen nowadays. So.
Yeah, whatever.
Right?
Whatever, that poor guy.
What happened to him?
Was he
Did Nazis kill him?
No, I'm thinking about Superman. He committed suicide.
Oh, he was murdered, actually.
Oh, he committed suicide?
That was a fake suicide. That was a murder.
I don't know anything about that. No, he was an Olympic swimmer or something. Or diver. I can't remember. This is way before my time. Like I said, that they just showed these old movies in the morning on Sunday. And I sit there and, because, most everybody else was at church. And I just watched these movies in the morning, late morning, until lunchtime. So anyway, the story was, so they're looking for this Mr. Mead, and that girl's working with him. And I'm thinking, she's the double agent? But then she goes back to Sherlock Holmes. Well, Sherlock Holmes and her are really working together. So it's a triple thing. A double agent back to being working for Sherlock Holmes. So anyway, they try to trap Mr. Mead. And they have these other bar patrons. I mean, you don't see him getting these people together to jump him and to pop out and try to capture him. No. It's done behind the scenes. You never see it. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Mead shows up, and they all try to grab him, all these bar patrons. And Miss Kitty just stands off to the side, and because she doesn't want to give herself up, in front of Mr. Mead. And then he pulls this little lever, and he drops down this escape hatch to a fleeing boat, and he rides away. So anyway, the whole ending of the story is that the Nazis are planning an invasion of Britain, and all of this back and forth with the plane and that voice on a record and everything, that has been a build-up to this invasion. And so Mr. Mead seems to think that the council and Sherlock Holmes, they all go to this place where Mr. Mead and all these Nazis are meeting. And, Mr. Mead thinks that they got him over. They got him. That they're going to invade. Well, Sherlock says, no, that voice didn't. You think people would leave? The British would leave their coast unguarded and just let them invade?
More propaganda.
Yeah.
Agendas right
and
there.
And then he said, no, in fact, they're getting all of those people. You can see it out the window, and they look out the window, and you see all these people being captured, and they capture all these invaders. They stop the invasion, and
also,
that's it.
I would summarize and say this movie sucks. It's not as bad. Well, I don't know. Like, the Sherlock show is more entertaining than this, but it is worse, in terms of being Sherlock Holmes. I hate it. There's nothing good about this movie. I would never watch it again. At least I got it over with, though. I guess you could say, like, maybe other movies in the series are good, and this one is just an anomaly. But, like, I feel like there's no excuse. Like, even if it is a propaganda film, like, that's not an excuse. Like, there can be a good propaganda film. Like, there's been lots of Agenda Leave It to Beaver episodes, and some of them are still good. So, like, why can't they do that for this? Like, why did they have to make this trash movie?
Well, I think it's a shame, too, because you can't ever bring these people back to life.
Yeah.
They're dead.
Or you can do AI, though, right? Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. I don't want to respond to that. And then...
well, they are doing that.
So it's a waste. It's too bad that they wasted any precious time that they had to work with them. They're just so good.
Yeah.
Maybe they just thought that in the future they'd come up with just as good. I don't even know how they could think that. Just as good, similar people who could play their character, and I don't agree.
No.
It's sad to me.
I think it would be interesting, although it would be a very extensive project that I'm not really wanting to do right now, but it would be interesting to see every Sherlock movie and TV show, to see, like, the different versions, and then what do you think I was going to say, Safi?
I don't know.
Rank them?
I didn't think about that. I was thinking about some of the commercials over the last, I don't know how many years, 10 years maybe or more, where they would put in an old character from the past in a commercial, like I think they did Humphrey Bogart, and they might have done Marilyn Monroe, where they put him in a commercial, and now a present day commercial somehow got him in there. I don't know how they did it. I have no idea, and it worked out. It looked really good, and it really wasn't them, of course. They had somehow conjured up the image, maybe from some past movie or something, from some film footage of them, and they inserted it in the commercial. It looked like they were endorsing the product. I can't give you an example because I can't think right off the bat, but I remember like at Super Bowl time, how they'll come up with these commercials. Usually they've done animals and the frogs, the Budweiser frogs, and the Budweiser horses with the dog, and those kinds of things, and but they did do these, and it would be interesting, it'd be fun actually if they had a commercial with Sherlock Holmes with those characters, and somehow brought them into the commercial. I don't know. I don't know, because I'm not really good at that kind of stuff, and I don't care about it. I mean, I don't care if I'm good with it or not. Somebody else can do it, like Marco maybe. So anyway, I don't know what else to say about it. I'm sad because I should not have picked this movie, and I'm sorry if it's been boring for you. These are two really good actors, and they really do play the parts well. And I feel like this was a time when we're cheated of their really good performance. Because, like, I've listened to tons of radio shows where they played these parts, and they used to have a lot of radio plays, and they would have them come on. I've seen other movies. I've read books, and it's because nobody's going to live forever. It's just, I feel like it's a shame that they wasted their valuable actors' time, because I don't think this movie benefits anybody.
No.
Like they intended. But I see, since it was probably made in the United States. I mean, if they were being bombed constantly, could they make any movie of any kind?
Well, how could they even, like, watch a movie? Like, did British people have the money to go to the movies, or did the movies get bombed? Like,
well, that's what the bombing. They're constantly under attack. Air raid sirens going off right and left, and there'd be no way to even go. Because
honestly, if I was a Nazi, I would say, hey, look at all those idiots seeing Barbie in the theaters. Just wait until I do a whee. There you go. Bye-bye. That's a lot. That's millions taken out right there. Because you had to see that feminazi propaganda movie. Bye-bye. That's what I would do.
So anyway, my review is, since we've been eating and reviewing these Gordon Ramsay frozen foods, and this is supposedly a British movie, because it is about the British being bombed over and over and over again. That isn't a joke. It did happen, and a lot of people lost their lives, but they didn't lose their resolve, and they ended up going for it, and with the help of the United States, unfortunately, thank God, and they defeated the Germans. But anyway, I gave it a Gordon Ramsay frozen fish and chips, because it wasn't very good. It was fake. A fake fish and chips, because I've been to England, I've been to London, and I've had their fish and chips, and they were French fries. These were home fries, so they weren't really what I've seen anyway for fish and chips. And the pieces of fish it was just not a very good meal, and it didn't have. I didn't think it had much flavor, and it was like, I think the fish was like little pillows. Wasn't that what it was? It was like little fried pillows, and then you know what home fries are. They're like quarters of a potato that were fried, and those were just barely passable. It wasn't that great of a meal, and for Gordon Ramsay being British and being a Michelin star chef of some magnitude, which I have no idea how many stars he has.
Well, apparently he did lose quite a few stars in the past few years, so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, so anyway, it's not a good meal. In fact, all of the meals that we have eaten so far, and we did eat one appetizer too. I mean, if you've seen the other reviews, you can just ignore what I'm saying, but none of it's been good.
No.
And this is something that's British, and it ought to be better than what it is. And so it's just like this movie. They did a disservice to Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce by making them. But maybe they wanted to. Maybe they thought they were being patriotic by doing a propaganda movie. I don't know. I don't know what they thought about that. I never heard what actors thought about making those kinds of movies? What do you think? Do you know?
Well, a lot of them are
I mean, they're all dead, but I mean,
a lot of them are puppets, and they don't really have any thoughts of their own, and they're very stupid. And so, they're just, they'll do anything because they're stupid. They're very, very stupid. And, you like people like Channing Tatum and, John Wayne. John Wayne was one of the biggest, like, propaganda people. And, he didn't even fight in any war. He was a fake.
Yeah, they've got a lot of information about that on YouTube.
And,
what he was really all about.
People like him, they're mindless puppets, and they'll just do whatever the stupid studio wants them to do. And so they made this movie, and it's a piece of crap. And years later, I destroyed it, and they can't do anything about it.
Nope. So what's your food review?
Well, what you gave me an idea was, there was another British dish that we made at home, and it was something that I was really excited about because it sounded like it would be really delicious. And
it should have been delicious.
It was in a recipe book that I gave Safi as a birthday present, and it was, if you guys don't know, Eleanor Donahue from Andy Griffith's show. She had a recipe autobiography book, and it's terrible. All the recipes are, you can tell that she did not taste any of them, and they're all fake and phony, and that, she just made up shit, I guess. And so there was a recipe for Cornish pasties, and they looked really, really good. Like, they would apparently give the wives of miners would give them these like little hot pocket type things with beef in them, and then on the other side would be a pocket of jelly, and so they would have their dinner and dessert while they're working in the mines. And I thought that'd be really fun to have for like a treat dinner, and it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare from hell. And Safi made it, and
I followed the recipe, but
yeah, she followed the recipe, but it just sucked, and
it wasn't good.
It was so bad that we literally had to stop eating it, and we had to all have like peanut butter and jelly and mac and cheese. That's how bad it was.
That was sad.
Yeah.
Because that is another British dish. So it was really weird because when we were doing our research, we were going to do our research in Tanzania. We had to stop in England. That's why we were there. We're going to do research there because Tanzania, which is where we were doing our research, was a colony of England. And then they were a colony. Oh, wait a minute. Let's see. First they were a colony of Germany, and then they were a colony of England, and then they got their independence. And so we knew we had to stop there. And so that's how come and I thought, but you know what, people warned us that the British food was just no good, that we wouldn't find anything good to eat, and just take advantage of all the international restaurants that there were in London, which there are tons everywhere, all kinds, holes in the ground, really good food, really tiny places, really good food, all kinds, every nationality you can think of. And so we didn't even have that British pasty. We couldn't even find anybody who served it. I think it's something you have to get in a pub. So
yeah, they look really good. Like if you look up pictures of them, they look really delicious. And
they look like beef stew in a pie.
Yeah, but this recipe, it was terrible.
Yeah. We tried some other recipes in there. They were no good.
Yeah, we tried her pasta Alfredo. That sucked too. It was a terrible book. Terrible.
Yeah, they call it a Cornish pasty, and the recipes Marco was looking at. So, anyway, so that's what we gave it, and I'm sorry. If you look around, really read what it says, and you know, if you don't mind watching a black and white movie, and look at what it really says, you know, like when it was put out and what it says, and see if you might be interested, and watch these actors. They're really, really good at Sherlock and Dr. Watson. I mean, you can't, there isn't anybody who does it better than them. So, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and become one of our subscribers so we can hear what you have to say about anything to do with the movies and TV shows and books, whatever. Okay, so goodbye.
Bye.